What's up, family? Welcome back to another legendary video. Get this video a big thumbs up. So, going into the game 2 days ago, which was Sunday, it was a bit of a strange game. I think the score in general kind of doesn't tell the full story of the game. Like it was an 8 point game at halftime, which was at 3 point. It was a 3 point game, and it was literally it was literally what basically happened was Fever ended the first quarter and second quarter bad, going down 8 at halftime. Right? They they ended up going down 8 at halftime. Then to those both quarters badly. Neither Kelsey Mitchell or Caitlin Clark could hit a shot. And the third quarter was relatively close. It was a couple of bad plays to the fourth, and then they just absolutely imploded down the stretch, which can happen, especially with the shots Marina Marbury was hitting. But at the end of the day, you got the only positives are the Suns are not going to shoot 50% from the three again, right? Like as a team, what did they shoot? They shot what? They shot 14, 15, 18, 3, 4, and 9, and they shot 50% for three. So it's just not going to happen again, right? Um, it's just not going to happen again. I want to put out there. It's not going to happen again. It's just really not going to happen at all. Or did they make 10? I don't know. Either way, 50% in the Fever made 4, 6 threes from 23, 26, and 28. Like there was 6 of 28 from three. Uh, go down. It was 6 of 28 for three. And that's there. You're not going to win any of those games. But one thing I was really kind of concerned about is the talk after the game. And it was all about how Caitlin Clark was talking about how she kept better care of the ball. And that was like, oh, she didn't turn the ball over that much. And I'm watching the game and I'm like, Caitlin, you didn't turn over the ball over that much, but because you didn't have the ball in your hands. Kelsey Mitchell your team turned the ball over as much as ever because you didn't have the ball in your hands, Caitlin Clark. Like if Caitlin has 8 turnovers and everyone else has 0, the team has 8 turnovers. But if Caitlin has 1 turnover and the rest of the team has 14, the team still has 15 turnovers. And that's the one thing I don't get is like, I think that was a tactical thing. I think that was a tactical thing. I think generally Christy Sides went and they went out with the tactics because after the game, Caitlin's still talking about the turnovers. And they're talking about how Caitlin needs to watch the turnovers. And I think they played so scared and they were so scared of Caitlin turning the ball over that they said you can't turn the ball over if you don't have the ball in your hands. And Caitlin goes and play off the ball, and then Caitlin this is what I always would say is if you watch Caitlin Clark when she plays off the ball, uh, Caitlin feel like she needs to get a certain amount of shots in per game, and it's very clear. And if you watched her say, um, I'm trying to think of the best, the best, the 3 point Liberty game, right? Every single time she caught the ball, she chucked. And you might be saying, oh, but she only shot the ball was it like 10 times in that game? And every single time she touched the ball, she shot because she just wasn't touching the ball enough. And that's what the problem is. I don't understand why the Fever, like if you want to look at the Indiana Fever and they really start going downhill after they made the playoffs, and I get it, we seen teams do that. Like you're a young team. It is what it is. But if you want to look at actual games and go back, it does seem like not necessarily her turnovers are going down. But actually, the funny part about this is that the team wins more games, like her turnovers. The more turnovers she has, the more games they win technically. And she averages more turnovers than wins and losses. But this reminds me of the Liberty game where she has very few turnovers because she just didn't have the ball in her hands. And I don't think Caitlin Clark did anything. I don't think Caitlin Clark did anything great passing wise. I think she made as many dumb passes 2 days ago per possession. I don't know. Maybe she makes 2 to 3 dumb passes a game. She made one really dumb pass 2 days ago. Probably had the ball in her hands a third amount of the time. So if you look at how they finished the season, once they made the playoffs, which was after the Sky game, they were terrible in the Wings game. Like the Wings were just bad. The Wings did not play great, other than Enrique lighting them up. Caitlin Clark is in that game had 28 to 12 with 7 turnovers. This was again the return of Kelsey. Actually, no, Kelsey Mitchell was really good in this game. Sorry, the Sparks game. I'm talking about the Sparks game. The Sparks was right after, and this was the first game after Caitlin Clark won the Player of the Month, and Chrissy Sides won Coach of the Month, and we start seeing Sides ball again, and the game was the worst for it, the Lynx game. This game was where was the Aaliyah Boston show, and Caitlin was very poor in the first half of that game. Um, First half of that game with the Lynx, and Caitlin was poor in 3 halves of the Aces games. And Caitlin was unbelievable against the Wings, but it's very easy to be unbelievable against the Wings, and this was the bench. The last I would say this is the last good game I saw the Indiana Fever play was against the Chicago Sky. And if you watch the way the Fever played in that game, they pushed the tempo. They were pushing the tempo and pushing the pace. And I get it. The Suns' goal is to stop the pace. But, like, you can't let Connecticut Suns control how you play. The Sun played this game like it was a playoff game. If you remembered, when they played the Connecticut Suns, and it was like a playoff game. But the reason why Indiana won is Indiana won for 2 reasons. They completely blitzed them in the first quarter, and even though Christy Sides did her best job to walk, Sides did her best job and try to walk the ball up the floor for 2 quarters, they then played well in clutch time. And in their defense, the Fever and crunch time outside of this game right here, which the Lynx game was close going into crunch time. In this second Aces game, where they really could have won both of them down the stretch, they've been good in crunch time. They were great against the Dream. They were great against the Wings in crunch time, and they were great against the Sparks and Cross. They were great against the Sparks, and it was the Sparks. They were great in that game against the Wings, and great against the Suns, and great against the Dream. So they were great. Again, poor enough against the Lynx, but they did a great job when the Mercury came back of pulling that game out. So they've been closing games well, but it's like you got to get to a position to close. And the problem is that you were so focused on Caitlin Clark not turning the ball over that you decide to not Caitlin Clark necessarily beat Caitlin Clark. And then Caitlin Clark does worse things. And the more she chucks, and this is one of Caitlin Clark's worst games, obviously the first game in the playoffs. But if you want to look at the bad game she played, the more Clark has the ball in her hands, the better the team is. And the more she has the ball in her hands, the better Kelsey Mitchell plays. And the more she has the ball in her hands, the better Aaliyah Boston plays. Actually, in fairness, Aaliyah Boston's different. She hoops whether or not Caitlin Clark plays well. But a lot of time, Aaliyah Boston helps Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark helps Kelsey Mitchell. So it's like a domino effect. And it's the reason why the big three work so well together. But 2 games ago, the team resort to, I don't know, maybe Chrissy Sides was like, oh, playoff basketball is like, I don't know what's going on here, but playoff basketball, is gritty, it's grinded out. We gotta grind it out. We can't grind it out with Caitlin Clark. And it's like, man, you didn't even try. You didn't even really try. And it wasn't even like they were in the game at the start and then they blitzed them. It was like the Connecticut Suns shoot like that. If the Connecticut Suns shoot like this every game, they win the WNBA championship. And it is what it is. But I just think tactically, the Indiana Fever got it all wrong. I think what they did to Melissa Smith is a joke. You do not play someone from start. You do not play someone from start, someone for moral reasons, and then take them off and have them on that short leash in the playoffs. Just to bench her and Dantis is not a net positive for this team. I cannot stress that enough. She is not a net positive for the Indiana Fever team. Like, she can hit some shots, but for every bucket she scores, she gives up one on the other end. And the problem is that Dantis, for some reason, she is now playing freaking power forward. So you have to get two players at times who at times look like they got bricks in their feet playing power forward center against a team whose power forward is their point guard, um, and Alyssa Thomas. So like the only tactical thing that makes sense was leaving Alyssa Thomas open, and Alyssa Thomas hit shots. In fairness to her, she had a good enough game. She hit some shots. I thought she was horrific in the second half, but I thought she was very, very good in the first half. And but they allowed the Connecticut Suns to outrun them and outgun them, and it was just a complete failure in tactics. And look, it doesn't even help if Christie sides got tactics perfect. They still lost this game. It's a 3-game series, and the second game, as we know, is a do or die, and they still lost. So even if like Kelsey Mitchell and Caitlin Clark were both laying bricks 2 days ago, Kelsey Mitchell shot the ball better, but like three of her buckets were in garbage time. Caitlin Clark she's going through another bit of a shooting slump. But the problem is that when Caitlin Clark was going through a shooting slump before the Olympic break, what we saw Caitlin Clark becoming that point guard. And we saw the pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston. And Aaliyah Boston seems to forget or have forgotten how to short roll. Like what she was doing was so well in time after the Olympics or before the Olympics. And right after the Olympics was being that facilitator out of the short roll, and Aaliyah Boston kind of going away of that from some reason. And they're going away from the pick and roll, which is very rare and which is weird to see. And they're going back to Caitlin Clark run around in a bunch of circles, and Kelsey go dribble, step back. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the Indiana Fever team. It was tactically a blunder, and that's the only way I would describe it. With Christie size, and they actually, I don't know, man, go and try to play Fever basketball, because if Indiana are not able to impose themselves on teams, they don't have the talent. So people are going to be like, oh, Indiana, they have to compete with anyone. No, they don't. They got 3 players. You got a hustle player like Lexi Hall. You got a runner, Timmy. And you have Dantis, who every other player on the team other than Lexi Hall, their negatives outweigh their positives. And Melissa Smith negatives outweigh her positive, especially for this team. Maybe on another team, maybe not so much. Timmy negatives outweigh her positives most of the time. Dantis, I believe her negative outweigh her positive. And Katie Lou, terrible. And Erica Wheeler is just what she is. Like, she's the Sydney Colson of the team. But again, none of them are flawless players. And I'll say Lexi Hall positive slightly outweigh her negative as a player, and that's it. And you have 3.5 players who positives outweigh their negatives. And so the only way you're going to win this, especially when you're playing against a team as gritty as the Connecticut Suns, is by imposing your style on them. And if you're playing a reactive style and being like, okay, how are we going to stop this team, and not how we can make this team go out their way to stop us, they're going to lose. And simple as that. They're going to lose, and they're going to have to oppose themselves on the Suns. And they didn't try to do that 2 days ago, family. So comment down below you guys' perspective, insight on this game. Give this video a big thumbs up. Until next time, family, peace.